So thank you so much, Cortney, for being here with us today and providing this powerful training. And
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Grateful to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit behind the scenes.
I know.
So you just did this wonderful, powerful training for us that I think people are going to really enjoy.
I hope so.
But I wanted to ask you, so what brought you to this work? What brings you to activism or, brought you to Pantsuit Nation in the first place?
That is such a great question, because I think there's so many people out there that people think have been doing this forever. And the truth is that I'm one of those people that got into this because of what I saw in the 2016 election and what happened after the fact. So Pantsuit Nation itself, big Facebook group, 3.7 million people. So for the most part, someone is added to that group by their friend. Mm-hmm. And I was added to the Facebook group when there were about 20,000 people in it by a friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was like, what is this thing? It seems really cool. I am going to follow it and participate and be an active member. And then I found out that a friend of a friend knew Libby, the woman who started the group.
Yeah.
And I volunteered to help out doing moderation and approving posts and that kind of thing back when it was just a waterfall of posts on a regular basis pre-election.
Right.
And when the election went the way it did, I was one of the people that was willing to decide what to do next.
Right.
That we weren't sure if people were going to just leave the group in droves because they didn't need it anymore, but the opposite happened. People were more willing than ever to talk about why they were continuing to advocate for the things that they were excited about before the election, but with a different kind of urgency. And so I stuck around and was getting that feedback from the community, thinking about what that would look like to be a real organization that did this with the Facebook group is the top part of it, and what is the undergirding that we can put in to make sure that this is something that's sustainable.
But you were doing all of this while you were working full-time.
Yeah, I had a full-time job.
Yeah, right.
But that was I was an executive recruiter in the nonprofit space. So I was thinking about what leadership looks like in nonprofits on a regular basis. That was my job. How do you make important decisions for an organization, bring in the right people at the right time to move an organization in a certain direction? And being a founder of an organization is a very specific kind of moment and leadership opportunity. And we were really, really fortunate to have some amazing support from New Media Ventures out in California. They really got what we were doing, using storytelling to make widespread kind of narrative shifts in the way that we talk about specific issues. And they we got our first grant from them, which makes a difference. Makes you think that someone really believes in what you're doing. And I was able to leave my position in my full-time job and start doing Pantsuit Nation full-time just over a year ago, July 2017.
So exciting. And you mentioned in videos that there's 3.7 million members currently, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the part that is so exciting about the 3.7 million people is that of those people, about 2 million are active every month.
Wow.
So that means commenting, watching videos, reacting, that this isn't just a group of stagnant people. These are people that are actually interacting in the community. And that's part of what's been able to give us the opportunity to sustain this, is that it's still something that people want to participate in, that the way that we are talking about issues by having people feel empowered to tell their personal story, that's the way that we highlight what's going on. That is something that still resonates, and it's been really exciting.
So a lot of people feel this sort of fatigue, right? Outrage fatigue around everything that's going on. Yeah. How do you deal with that? And how do you keep your passion going for continuing to fight every day?
Sure, that is such a real thing, because it can be so exhausting, particularly with this administration where it feels like, sometimes multiple times a day, something new and challenging is coming in. The way that I deal with it is that I take myself offline for particular periods of time. So I go for a walk with my phone on airplane mode and listen to a podcast so that I can't be getting, news alerts that are tinging in my ear, taking me out of that moment of relaxation. But then I also, in the work, am focused on where do we really add value, and making sure that that's the focus of what we're doing, so that it doesn't feel as much as that, kind of grasping at all of the different things that you can do. When you say, we are an amazing platform for people to tell stories. We're a great place to amplify tools. We're a great place to meet other people in your area or across the country who are like you if you don't have those people in your immediate family or friend circle. And so when we focus on those things that we're really good at, then it can make even this very chaotic world feel like it has a focus and we have a purpose.
So that sounds similar to even some of the advice you gave in the training, which is, even though you're outraged about everything, it's important to narrow down and pick an issue.
Absolutely. It's so critical for your own personal thought organization to have a set of things that you want to focus on or that that you're good at to do. It's at the organizational level and the personal level. There's a complete parallel between those two things.
That's really cool. So, as far as the training that you just recorded for us, what would you consider as sort of the most important takeaways for the viewer? What did you really want the viewers to take away from the training series that you provided?
I am really hoping that people come away with this recognizing that it is not a special or different kind of person who is an activist. That every single one of us has the capacity to find that thing that matters to them and go out and do something about it. And I think often the narrative is, look at this amazing, and we get caught up in it too, 3.7 million people, look what you've built. But this was, a woman in Maine, Libby, a young mom who just asked people to do one thing. And that has had this amazing ripple effect. But it starts with that one action, that clicking create on a Facebook group, asking people to do, wear a pantsuit when they went to vote. And not all of the actions that an individual takes becomes, this large thing, but each of those actions is like a pebble in a pond that creates a ripple that makes a difference. And I just want people to know that they are that pebble. You don't have to be, there's nothing that is different about people who have been doing this regularly. Every single one of those people had to start with one thing.
So basically, anyone can be an activist. It doesn't take any special personality or trait, or do you think everyone should be an activist?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that usually most people are already, but they just don't necessarily think of it in that frame. That you always have something that matters to you, that's important, that you're dedicating your time to. And labeling that as activism, I think, is part of what has been a little bit different with how Pantsuit Nation talks about work. That motherhood can be activism, that cooking is activism, farming is activism. There's a lot of different ways that the things that you're already doing are making these critical impacts in communities.
So explain that for a second. How is cooking activism?
Sure, yeah. So I think of it in a bunch of different ways. So one thing that I reference in the video that's very kind of fundamental is that people need to be sustained by food in order to do the kinds of work that you're doing. When you're going out and door knocking, having a really good breakfast or something to have with you to bring to sustain your energy. If you're the person that's providing that food for those people, then you're participating in activism by giving them food. Another thing that we have seen in Pantsuit Nation is people who are sharing their food traditions with members of their community. So this is the flavors of my family, and this is something that I do as a tradition each year. Let me open my doors to some of my neighbors and talk about that and invite them to bring their food traditions. And that is, can be a a really activist act to open your door compassionately to the people that live around you, and food is a really great way to bring people together.
Wow, that's amazing. And I'm sure just that building of a community does something for the fabric of society that in and of itself is activism.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That the community is that like foundation of the pyramid on which the other parts of activism and civic engagement are built. That you won't engage civically if you don't care about community and the things that interlace us and make us more than just our nuclear family or even
Jobs,
your
our careers,
exactly
our individual pursuits.
Yeah, that there's more to a larger community that's being built. And that's actually one of the things I think that makes Pantsuit Nation so strong, is that people have found a new way of creating community online that hadn't necessarily happened before. That the feeling of a true and authentic connection with someone that you've never met, because they're speaking from their own experience, using their own words, talking about why something is important to them. And that can oftentimes create that moment of empathy where you say, I recognize that, and now we are in community together because we share this thing.
That's beautiful. So do you leave today with optimism for the future of our democracy?
I do, actually. I think one of the most amazing things, and I think you guys at Resistance School are a great example of this, is how many incredible groups, tools have grown out of this whole movement. Things that even when it doesn't feel like we're in a panic mode are still going to be so useful. That when we get to where we need to be, when we are comfortable again with the safety of our democracy, when we believe in the leaders that we have elected to office, it still matters to tell them what matters to you and your community. It still matters to register new voters. It still matters to do all of the things that you guys are teaching or that we're advocating for. And so I think that part of my optimism comes from recognizing that a lot of these different organizations and groups and individuals who are activating are moving us towards this thing that we're all hoping to have happen, to really turn that leaf, but that we are going to be such a better engaged society when we get there.
So we're actually strengthening our democracy.
Yeah, as we build, exactly, we're strengthening.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful to be with you.
Thank you for having me. This is so great.